Have you ever wanted to watch a video that explains everything there is to know about German verbs? Well, you've come to the right place. Intro. Tag an alle, my name is Florian and recently I've uploaded a video about personal pronouns. So now is the perfect time to talk about verbs in all their glory. Or their dreadfulness, depending on how you look at it. Either way, today I'm going to explain everything there is to know about verb conjugation in German. Let's get started. The most important question is, what actually is conjugation? Let me show you. Conjugation describes the change of a verb to reflect a certain grammatical feature. Sounds very academic, so I'll show you how that works in English. If we use the verb to be with all the different pronouns, we get I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you are, they are. See how the verb changes when we use different personal pronouns? That is conjugation. Now, conjugation in English is usually pretty simple. To be is an exception in almost all languages, so how about the verb to say? I say, you say, he, she, it says, we say, you say, they say, not a lot of changes. German verbs, on the other hand, are conjugated a bit more than their English counterparts. That means that you have more endings to memorize, but don't worry, it's not as bad as Slavic verbs.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
There are 9 verb classes in German, depending on who counts, but this is my channel, so I have the authority here. There's another class called modal verbs, but those deserve a separate video. Keep in mind that due to the nature of conjugation, we'll be going over the first of 6 tenses in German, which would be the present tense. However, I will make a different video specifically about the present tense and its usage. For now, we're going to start off with regular verbs that will open up 60–70% of all verbs to you. Los geht's! Regular verbs will always end in en. That does not mean that all verbs ending in en are regular, but it's good to know. For our purposes, let's use the German version of to say, sagen. First, you have to cut the en part to get the root of the verb. Then, we attach different endings to that root for each person. The first person singular gets a simple so I say is ich sage. The second person singular gets an st. Du sagst, you say. For the third person singular, just add a simple t. Sie es sagt. He, she, it says. And by just doing that, we're done with the singular. The plural is even easier. To form the verb in the first person plural, you have to give it its ending back. We cut off en, now we attach it again. Wir sagen, we say. For the second person plural, you have to add a t, like in the third person singular. Ihr sagt, you say, or you guys say. And last but not least, another en for the third person plural, sie sagen, which could either mean they say or you say formally. The formal z is always capitalized. I've covered all of that in my pronoun video. Click here to get more info. Now, before we move on to some examples, I want to share 2 incredibly useful life hacks with you that will make your journey so much easier when it comes to conjugation. Except for sein, to be, all German verbs are always regular in the plural. It's the root with no change for the first and third person and a t for the second person. Number 2, the first and third person plural are always the same as well, even with irregular verbs. Wir sind, sie sind. Wir haben, sie haben. Wir wissen, sie wissen, etc. Try to remember these 2 rules. Alright, now it's your turn. I'll give you a verb and you try to conjugate it. It's really simple, you'll see. The first verb is trinken, to drink. Pause the video now and give it a try. Alright, here's the solution. Ich trinke, du trinkst, sie es trinkt, wir trinken, ihr trinkt, sie trinken. Another one, machen, to do or to make. Stop the video now. And here we go. Ich mache, du machst, sie es macht, wir machen, ihr macht, sie machen. Alright, good job. Some other verbs to practice with are fragen, to ask, bleiben, to stay, or bauen, to build. Give it a try. Now, back to our main table, and let me give you another verb, retten, to save, as in to save somebody from something. Pause the video now. Alright, let's take a look. The first form is pretty standard, ich rette. But when trying to form the second or third person singular, we get consonant clusters that are kind of awkward to pronounce. Du rettst, or even rettet. And yeah, that is exactly why we keep the e in the root if a verb ends on ten or den. Ich rette, du rettest, sie es rettet, wir retten, ihr rettet, sie retten. Now you give it a try with the verb reden, to talk. Stop the video. And here's the solution. Ich rede, du redest, sie es redet, wir reden, ihr redet, sie reden. Also, here are some other verbs from the same group: testen, to test, or landen, to land, or öffnen, to open, which is kind of an exception because most verbs ending in nen don't conjugate that way. Ich öffne, du öffnest, sie es öffnet, wir öffnen, ihr öffnet, sie öffnen. Keep that in mind. The next group consists of verbs with the ending sen, sen, written either way, and tzen, tzen, which are also pronounced the same. The only difference here is that the second and third person singular and the second person plural are all the same because you have the s, ts sound at the end of the root. Let's use these two words as examples. Küssen, to kiss, and tanzen, to dance. Ich küsse, du küsst, sie es küsst, wir küssen, ihr küsst, sie küssen. And ich tanze, du tanzt, sie es tanzt, wir tanzen, ihr tanzt, sie tanzen. Now I'll give you the other two varieties to practice with. Let's use the words beißen, to bite, and kratzen, to scratch. Pause the video. And here we go. Ich beiße, du beißt, sie es beißt. Wir beißen, ihr beißt, sie beißen. And the other one, ich kratze, du kratzt, sie es kratzt, wir kratzen, ihr kratzt, sie kratzen. Yeah, German has a lot of consonants, even though we're trying to avoid them. But yeah, that is everything there is to say about the regular class and the phonetic changes that have to be made when verbs end in certain consonants. Alright, I think you're ready for your first class with the root vowel change. In this group, verbs contain the letter E in their stem, which is then going to change to E, which is why I call this class the A to E class. I know, innovation. However, this change only applies to the second and third person singular. Let me demonstrate how this works by using the verb geben, to give. You start off as usual, ich gebe. Then you have the root vowel change, E to E. Du gibst, sie es gibt. And then you go back to normal, wir geben, ihr gebt. And watch out here, it is not ihr gibt, but ihr gebt, and sie geben. Please keep in mind that not all verbs that have the letter E in their stem fall into this category. Heben, to lift, for example, doesn't have these changes. It is from the regular class. Ich hebe, du hebst, sie es hebt, wir heben, ihr hebt, sie heben. But yeah, that's basically it. I'll give you a few words from the A to E class to practice with. The first one is helfen, to help. Stop the video here. And let's conjugate. Ich helfe, du hilfst, sie es hilft, wir helfen, ihr helft, sie helfen. Did you get it right? Let's try this one. Sprechen, to speak. Pause the video again. And here we go. Ich spreche, du sprichst, sie es spricht, wir sprechen, ihr sprecht, sie sprechen. Alright, let's jump to the second class with root vowel changes. These verbs work in exactly the same way as the previous ones, but instead of changing E to E, you have to change it to IE, which always produces the long E sound. Let's use the verb sehen, to see. Ich sehe, du siehst, sie es sieht, wir sehen, ihr seht, sie sehen. Let's have another example, a longer word this time, empfehlen, to recommend. Take your time and pause the video. Alright, let's go through them. Ich empfehle, du empfiehlst, sie es empfiehlt, wir empfehlen, ihr empfehlt, sie empfehlen. And with that, we have one last class with root vowel changes left, the A to A class, which does exactly what it says. Before you start conjugating, let me first give an example using the verb tragen, which means to wear or to carry. Ich trage, du trägst, sie es trägt, wir tragen, ihr tragt, again regular here, sie tragen. Now that you understand the pattern, you can test it with the verb halten, to hold. Pause the video now and give it a try. Alright, let's see if I have deceived you. Ich halte, du hältst, sie es hält, wir halten, ihr haltet, sie halten. But wait, did you say du hältest and sie es hältet? Well, I can't blame you. However, in this group, you don't keep the additional e in the second and third person singular, even though the verb ends in ten. The second person plural has it though. Even more interesting, if you conjugate a verb outside of this group, but with the same structure, you actually keep the e. I'm going to show you exactly that by using the word falten, to fold. Ich falte, du faltest, sie es faltet, wir falten, ihr faltet, sie falten. There you go. Now let me deceive you once again and hand you the verb laufen, to run. Pause the video whenever you're ready. Here we go. I'm sure you wrote down the correct forms, but have you pronounced them the right way? Let's see. Ich laufe, du läufst, sie es läuft, wir laufen, ihr lauft, sie laufen. Don't forget that these two letter combinations, EU and EU, always produce the oi sound. Very close to the English words boy or toy. So yeah, if you remember these exceptions in this verb class, you're gonna be fine. Let's move on. Verbs from the next two classes have one thing in common: they don't end in en. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are irregular, but their conjugation looks slightly different. The first class has the ending ERN and the second class ELN. Let's begin with ERN verbs and the example ändern, to change. Ich ändere, du änderst, sie es ändert, wir ändern, ihr ändert, sie ändern. You can already see that the root always contains the ER part and only the N is affected. Pretty intuitive, right? But there's one more thing to say about this class. In spoken German, we don't really say ich ändere. In 99% of the cases, we will shorten that to ich änder, with no ending for the first person singular at all. Now you try. Take the verb wandern, to hike, conjugate it, and try to use both forms for the first person singular. Ready? Then stop the video now. Okay, here we go. Ich wandere or ich wander, du wanderst, sie es wandert, wir wandern, ihr wandert, sie wandern. Great, let's jump to the second class that has the ending ELN. It works in a similar fashion, and there's also a formal and informal first person singular. As an example, we can use the verb lächeln, to smile. But as soon as we start conjugating, we notice something interesting. There are three potential forms for the first person: ich lächele, ich lächel, or ich lächle. Now, I don't know anybody who uses ich lächle outside a theater or poetry slam, so forget that form immediately, even though it's the most logical one. If you want to be formal or write this word down, please use the form ich lächle. Ich lächele can be found in some dialects though, including mine. Ja, da lächele ich aber ja nicht, wenn es am Reihe ist. Bro, German dialects are just insane. Let's continue with the conjugation. So we have ich lächle or ich lächel, du lächelst, sie es lächelt, wir lächeln, ihr lächelt, sie lächeln. And that's it. Now it's your turn again, and you can conjugate the verb handeln, to trade or to act. 3, 2, 1, pause the video. And here are the solutions. Ich handle or ich handel, du handelst, sie es handelt, wir handeln, ihr handelt, sie handeln. Alright, we've come to the last and arguably the most important class of them all, the irregular class, which contains verbs that don't follow any specific conjugation pattern. Here we can also find the two most frequently used verbs of the German language, sein, to be, and haben, to have. However, there are four other ones: werden, to become, wissen, to know, nehmen, to take, and tun, to do. Let's conjugate them one by one and start with sein. Ich bin, du bist, sie es ist, wir sind, ihr seid, sie sind. As you can see, every verb form is irregular and you just have to know them by heart. Moving on to haben. Ich habe, du hast, sie es hat, wir haben, ihr habt, sie haben. To become, werden. Ich werde, du wirst, sie es wird, wir werden, ihr werdet, sie werden. Now wissen. Ich weiß, du weißt, sie es weiß, wir wissen, ihr wisst, sie wissen. Nehmen. Ich nehme, du nimmst, sie es nimmt, wir nehmen, ihr nehmt, sie nehmen. And the last one, tun. Ich tue, du tust, sie es tut, wir tun, ihr tut, sie tun. There are two last verbs that by themselves are the only ones in their respective category. Stoßen, to bump or to push, which changes its root vowel from O to Ö. So, ich stoße, du stößt, sie es stößt, wir stoßen, ihr stoßt, sie stoßen. And the very rare and poetic verb erlöschen, to lapse or to go out for candles, where the Ö actually changes to I for some reason. Ich erlösche, du erlischst, sie es erlischt, wir erlöschen, ihr erlöscht, sie erlöschen. There you go. And with that, congratulations, you've made it through the video and learned everything there is to know about conjugation classes. I will also link the video about modal verbs here in this info card and in the description as soon as it's out. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, and in case you have any questions or something is left unclear, always feel free to leave a comment. Thank you for watching and see you very soon. Haut rein!